Title: No movie can top this unbelievable true story of betrayal. True crime documentary. Before we begin, remember, in the world of true crime, truth is always darker than fiction. So if you're here, hit subscribe, like, and comment, not for entertainment but to keep these stories alive so the victims are never forgotten. Thanksgiving morning in Woodland Park, Colorado. A bright, crisp holiday morning that should have been filled with warmth and family laughter. Instead, it would become the beginning of one of the most chilling betrayal stories the state had ever seen. Inside a cozy townhouse at the edge of town, 29-year-old flight instructor Kelsey Barth was preparing a small Thanksgiving meal. Cinnamon rolls cooling on the counter. A baby's giggle somewhere in the living room. Soft music. Ordinary peace. To neighbors and friends, Kelsey was the picture of stability, disciplined from her farm upbringing, calm and patient from her years teaching others how to fly. Her move to Colorado had been a fresh start, a chance to build a new life with someone she believed she could trust. Patrick Fry, a rancher with deep family roots in the region. They had met online. A quiet cowboy and a determined pilot. For a moment they looked like the perfect puzzle pieces, the kind of pairing people post on Instagram with sunset backgrounds and cowboy boots. Soon they had a daughter together. Kelsey dreamed of a real family home, of stability, of futures planned years ahead. But Patrick never fully stepped into the life she imagined. He lived between two worlds, his ranch and Kelsey's townhouse. Always nearby yet somehow distant. He controlled the pace, the closeness, the silence. Kelsey tried to be patient. For her daughter's sake, she held on to hope. And on that Thanksgiving morning, she believed things were still fixable. She sent him a text, simple, warm, thoughtful. "I got sweet potatoes for casserole. But I forgot pecans. If you want some, can you grab them?" Just an ordinary holiday message. But hidden beneath that quiet exchange was a storm no one else could see. 3 days later, Kelsey's mother realized something was wrong. No calls. No messages. Silence, the kind of silence that sets off alarms in a parent's heart. On December 2nd, police entered the townhouse. No forced entry. No signs of chaos. Just stillness. 2 cars parked neatly outside. A home that looked frozen mid-celebration. Cinnamon rolls untouched, baby toys neatly arranged. But where was Kelsey? Investigators questioned Patrick immediately. His tone was flat. Detached. He claimed he hadn't seen her since Thanksgiving. Their relationship had ended, he said. She had walked away. Perhaps she needed time. Maybe she went somewhere to think. But nothing about that explanation fit the woman her family knew. Kelsey didn't run. She didn't leave her daughter. She didn't vanish. Still, there was no evidence of foul play. Just a missing mother and a boyfriend who spoke like the situation was merely inconvenient. It wasn't until Kelsey's brother returned to the townhouse days later that everything changed. While checking the bathroom, he noticed something odd. A dark stain beneath the toilet. Not much, just enough to make the air around him shift. Forensics confirmed what everyone feared. It was blood. Suddenly the case shifted. This wasn't a disappearance. It was something much worse. And then came the most chilling moment of all. Police pulled surveillance footage from a neighbor's camera, footage that directly contradicted Patrick's story. On Thanksgiving Day, the camera recorded Patrick entering Kelsey's townhouse with her and their daughter. Hours later, it recorded him leaving. Alone. The investigation had only just begun. When investigators first questioned Patrick Fry, his behavior was strangely calm. Not distressed. Not emotional. Almost rehearsed. But the deeper they looked, the more one disturbing pattern emerged. Patrick had been living 2 lives. The other woman. Her name was Crystal Key, a nurse from Idaho, and someone Patrick had been secretly involved with long before Kelsey ever disappeared. Crystal and Patrick weren't just romantic. They shared something darker. A belief that Kelsey was in the way. Phone records showed thousands of messages between them. Hidden conversations, secret plans, and emotionally loaded statements that read more like manipulation than love. Crystal believed Patrick had been trapped in a relationship he didn't want. Patrick believed Crystal was someone who would do anything for him. And then investigators discovered something that stunned everyone. Patrick and Crystal had exchanged messages discussing multiple different ways to remove Kelsey from his life. But messaging is one thing. Acting is another. So how did this turn from fantasy to reality? The candle incident. Weeks before Kelsey disappeared, Patrick asked Crystal to help him. He told her that if she truly loved him, she would take care of the situation. Crystal drove over 800 miles to Colorado. Her first attempt involved visiting Kelsey's home disguised as a friendly neighbor, holding a gift basket and a scented candle. The plan, according to text messages and later testimony, was to convince Kelsey to smell the candle, one Crystal claimed had been tampered with. But when she stood face to face with Kelsey, Crystal couldn't do it. Kelsey opened the door holding her baby. Smiling. Polite. Kind. Crystal froze. She left. She drove home. But Patrick wasn't angry. He tried again. Failure again and again. Police uncovered 3 separate trips Crystal made to Colorado. Each time she was supposed to do one thing: eliminate Kelsey. Each time she didn't. You would think that would be the end of it, that Crystal would realize this was wrong, that Patrick would stop obsessing, that life would simply go on. But Patrick had something Crystal wanted beyond logic or moral sense: his approval. And then came Thanksgiving. The day Kelsey disappeared, the same day Patrick had breakfast at her townhouse, the same day their daughter giggled on the living room floor. The day everything changed. The search widened. Once investigators found blood in Kelsey's home, they called Crystal in for questioning. She thought she could lie, that she could outthink detectives who had already traced her car, her phone, her messages. But the one thing that breaks most accomplices isn't guilt. It's pressure. When detectives revealed they had messages, detailed conversations, she broke. Voice shaking. Hands trembling. She admitted it. She admitted there had been a plan. She admitted Patrick didn't just want Kelsey gone. He had already carried it out. And that was only the beginning. Because what Crystal told investigators next revealed a betrayal so cold that even seasoned detectives paused. Not just how Kelsey died, but what happened to her afterward. Crystal sat in the interrogation room, staring at the table. Her voice was barely audible, but every word she spoke rewrote the narrative forever. She told investigators what happened after Thanksgiving, the part no one wanted to imagine. The baby was there. On Thanksgiving Day, Patrick spent hours inside Kelsey's townhouse. Their 1-year-old daughter was in her playpen, feet away, unaware of anything but toys and colors. And while detectives were careful not to describe every detail publicly, the truth was clear. Kelsey never walked out of that home. Patrick left alone because Kelsey was already gone. And then came the most chilling part. He returned the next day, not to grieve, not to panic, not to confess, but to clean. "You're going to have to help me." Patrick drove to Crystal's home in Idaho shortly after. He told her in a calm, flat voice, "It's done. Now you're going to have to help me clean up." Not a plea. Not a request. A command, the kind someone gives when they are fully convinced the other person is under their control. And Crystal listened. She drove back to Colorado. She walked into Kelsey's townhouse. The same place where Kelsey had baked cinnamon rolls just days earlier. Crystal would later describe the home as silent, a silence that felt heavy, as if the air itself knew what had happened. She cleaned for hours. She removed traces. She followed instructions. Not because she felt forced, but because she believed helping Patrick would finally prove her loyalty. This wasn't love. This was devotion twisted into delusion. The drive to the ranch. After the townhouse was cleaned, Crystal drove to Patrick's ranch, a place isolated from neighbors, surrounded by woods and farmland. That's where Patrick had taken Kelsey. That's where the final stage of the plan unfolded. Investigators, journalists, even court officials later described what happened there as methodical and planned, but they did not share graphic details. And we will not either, because this story is not about shock value. This story is about betrayal, obsession, and the horrifying lengths a person will go to maintain control. What matters is this: Kelsey's life ended not in a moment of rage, but in a premeditated act, one that had been discussed, planned, rehearsed, and encouraged. And then her remains were destroyed in a way intended to erase her from the world. But it didn't work, because evidence always speaks. Text messages, phone records, store receipts, security footage, witness statements, Crystal's confession. Piece by piece, the truth assembled itself. The nation reacts. When news outlets released the story, the reaction was immediate. How could a partner do this? How could a mother be targeted like this? How could someone stand beside a person they loved and still carry out something so cold? But the darkest question of all: what made Crystal follow him? Well, fear, manipulation, or a dangerous mix of all three? Psychologists called it coercive emotional control, not physical force but psychological power strong enough to override moral judgment. Patrick's control over Crystal was invisible, but absolute.